Hello everyone, Tim again here, and today I have the pleasure of bringing you another one of my Dota 2 hero guides. And as you can see, today's gameplay is going to be focusing on Lifestealer, also known as Naix, N-A-I-X. So if you see someone type that in the chat, that's who they're on about. Lifestealer is an incredibly powerful strength melee carry. He is very commonly seen in the pro scene, and that's always a good indicator of how powerful a hero is, because obviously pro players, they are looking to min-max their lineups as often as possible, and you see Lifestealer picked or banned a huge amount of the time. He is incredibly powerful, and you'll understand why as I begin to talk through his skill sets. But before I get into that, let's talk a little bit about the game. This is a Captain's Mode game. I played it with a couple of friends, and it's a game that goes pretty well. Obviously, it's a nice game to show you how Lifestealer works in conjunction with some other heroes. And it's a nice way to show you how to run a lane Lifestealer build, because the great thing about Lifestealer is he is a very effective jungler. So if you like a little bit of jungling, you can go in there and get some steady, reliable farm, but it's always better, in my opinion, if you can, to run a hero in the lane, because if you can last hit successfully and get a few kills, you're always going to have a better farm ratio than a jungler, unless you're jungling someone like Enigma, who can just jungle insanely quickly. But well, let's talk about Lifestealer. Starting item builds, pretty standard really. I've gone for 8 tangos, a quelling blade and 3 GG branches. Very standard for the stats. Nice little bit of regen. Your regen isn't massive on Lifestealer, but it's always nice to have regen in lane, especially if you're getting harassed a little bit. There's nothing worse than getting harassed out of lane, so if you can have a little bit of regen, as again I mess up my block there, never mind. If you can have a little bit of regen in lane, it's always a good thing. So as always, let's start off by talking about Lifestealer's skills. And the skill I'll talk about first is the one I've put the first point in, which is Feast. Now, Feast is a passive lifesteal ability. He's called Lifestealer. There was no doubt that there was going to be some lifesteal in there. It's pretty useful. It scales from 4% up to 7%, going up the levels. And it's just a very useful way of giving yourself a little bit of extra survivability, because obviously you're going to be getting some extra health back from punching things, which is always a bonus, and this is one of the things that makes Lifestealer incredibly powerful late game, because you do an increased amount of damage as obviously you level up. So your lifesteal will go up as well. Percentage-based lifesteal is very effective, because obviously it scales late game, and this is one thing that helps Lifestealer really combat very powerful carries late on, because as his damage goes up, he will begin to lifesteal even more, keeping him in the fight for a huge amount of time. And this skill is more useful when you're jungling, obviously, because you're going to be taking a lot more damage, but it's still useful in lane, because every little bit of last hit you get gives you that extra little bit of regen, and it helps keep you in lane for a little bit of time. But you can see I'm already down to half health, up against a Bristleback off lane. Bristleback obviously can spam a huge amount of quill spray, lessens your survivability in lane, because he just chips away at you. You can just consistently harass, and we were thinking about going on the kill there, but it was unlikely we were going to be able to kill him at that time, so we backed off. So Feast is very useful in this lane, because obviously Bristle's going to be harassing you, and every little bit of HP you can get will keep you in the combat more. So it's pretty standard scaling, like I mentioned, just 4 to 7%, 1% per level. Always nice getting at least 1 point in that early, just to help your survivability. The next skill I'm going to talk about is Open Wounds. Open Wounds is an active skill. It rends an enemy unit, slowing the victim's move speed and allowing all of your allies to get lifesteal on that unit, which is absolutely massive. And this silencer, it just begins to get away, and Crystal Maiden very nearly killed me there by attacking Bristleback in the back. If she'd have actually procced his quill spray there, what's the name for his passive? Bristleback, the clue's in the name, I suppose. If she'd have actually procced that, I probably would have died there, but never mind. We actually get the first blood, and that's got me off to a very nice start in lane. But Open Wounds is incredibly powerful, because like I've mentioned, it gives all friendly heroes lifesteal, which is absolutely huge. It's a huge bonus. So you can Open Wounds a target, and every single hero, friendly hero attacking that, will get lifesteal. And the great thing about it is it also includes spell damage, which is an incredibly unique thing in Dota. So magic nukes actually will lifesteal a target with Open Wounds on it, which is absolutely huge. That's a huge thing, and it really can sway team fights in your favour when enemy heroes don't anticipate that. Because once you've got to, say, a decent amount of Dota experience, you can begin to tell how fast something dies or how fast it will take to do a certain amount of damage. When you throw Lifesteal into the equation, and especially Lifesteal like that, that turns a hero, for example, like Crystal Maiden, into a lot more of a tanky force, because all of a sudden, and typical tower aggro screws me over there, instead of going for the melee creep, it goes to the range creep, which is just out of my range, which is unfortunate. But instead of CM dying immediately, the open wounds can keep her alive. You know, she can get so much lifesteal from her magic nukes. It's incredible. Obviously, scales as always, 15, 20, 25, 30%. The max slow is 70%. And I'm going to explain how the slow works in a little bit, but let's talk about the basic stats. You know, the range scales up as well from 200 to 500. The max slow is 70%, and as it scales, the cooldown goes down from 24 to 12 seconds. It costs a flat 110 mana all the way through, so it's not a cheap spell. Look at Lifestealer's mana pool. It's not massive. It's only 273. And when you bring in Rage, like we'll talk about in a little bit, you can burn through his mana pretty quickly. So you do need to be a little bit selective with the usage of this. But it's a very, very powerful skill. I'm actually just going to turn this up because I can't remember how long Shadow Shaman took to resume the game. So I'm just going to speed through this pause a little bit here while I just scan the screen. You know, this is an absolutely massive ability. And here we go, he's returned. Let's just return it to normal speed, because it can just completely sway a team fight. Players are not expecting it, the lifesteal comes on, and all of your team survive. And it can help you get a lot of early kills in lane, because the slow, you know, it starts off at 70%, which is an absolutely massive, massive slow. But unfortunately, this was one of the nerfs brought in. The slow drops off throughout the time, so it starts off at 70%, sorry, and then over the 8-second duration it goes 70, 70, 60, 50, 30, 10, 10, 10. So I hope you guys understand that. So for every second the buff is on a guy, the slow begins to decrease in duration and, you know, severity, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I suppose Lifestealer was a little bit too strong in lane. He was absolutely incredible. To have a 70% flat slow in lane early on and lifesteal with any decent supports at all, you are going to get a huge amount of kills in lane. So it was a little bit too strong. It's still incredible. It's still an incredible ability. You know, the fact it's on a 24-second cooldown early is a little bit of a problem, but late game, a 12-second cooldown on an ability like this means quite conceivably you can open wound 2 targets in a team fight, which is absolutely huge. So very, very useful indeed. Let's talk a little bit now about Lifestealer's other ability, which is Rage. Rage is incredible because, as most of you guys know, one of the major damage types in Dota 2 is magic. You know, you get a lot of magic nukers. For example, in this game, we're a little bit, you know, bereft on magic nukers here. There isn't a Zeus in the pool or a Skywrath Mage who are the typical magic nukers, and this Conker is incredibly dead, absolutely dead. And you know, the hero's back off to let me have the last hit, which is very, very nice. Always do this if you can. You know, give your carry the last hit because he gets a little bit of extra gold, a little bit of extra experience, and it keeps the snowball rolling. So I'm 1-0 and 1 in lane now. I've messed up a couple of last hits, which is, you know, not ideal, but this is now an excellent start. And as always, I get my Midas on a strength carry. Talk a little bit about item builds as we go along, but let's talk a little bit about Rage. Rage gives you magic immunity for the duration of this skill. It's absolutely massive. You know, it scales 3 to 6 second duration, level 1 to 4. Very, very sensible and obvious scaling. It is on a 19-second cooldown, however. When you think that a BKB is on a minute cooldown, you understand the power of Rage. The great thing about Rage as well, it gives you an attack speed boost, scaling from 30 to 80. So 30, 45, 60, 80. So it does actually scale slightly better at the higher level. So, you know, this is the good thing about Lifestealer. All of his skills are absolutely incredible. You want to max them all as often as you can. And you can see me just do a little bit of jungling here when the lane's pushed up. Very, very good with Lifestealer. You can very easily run into the jungle. And once you're level 5, you know, you've got a couple of points in feast, a couple of points in open wounds. You lifesteal so much more quickly. It really is very, very useful indeed. So that's one good thing about it. But again, Rage, having this innate magic immunity is incredible. Absolutely incredible, because it means your survivability is just huge. Absolutely huge. So you have lifesteal, so you're going to be able to close the distance and, you know, heal yourself through physical attacks. You have, you know, innate magical immunity, which protects you from the magic nukers. You're absolutely huge, and not only that, you can grant lifesteal to all of your teammates, even with their magic attacks. So you begin to see just why Lifestealer is so incredibly powerful. You know, he really is an insanely powerful hero. It's very, very useful indeed, and especially after this good of a start, it is pretty huge. And one thing I did just want to quickly mention about open wounds, one thing I did forget, it's just come back to me when I saw that jungling there. This actually does stack with feast, so you can get 2 instances of lifesteal if you use open wounds on the target and then attack him. The feast lifesteal and the open wounds lifesteal will both go off as well. So that's one good reason why he's such a good jungler, because you can cast open wounds on the target and it will grant you bonus lifesteal. And now this lane is pretty won. No one really can come up to lane, because we've got Silencer sitting here, and we have got a support Silencer this game because we picked him because of the Faceless Void. Faceless Void, Shadow Shaman, lots of good disables. Bristleback, again, a hero who relies a huge amount on casting a lot of spells. Kunkka has a few powerful spells as well, so having that support silence, that global silence in a team fight is a really big deal. So quite an interesting laning setup here actually. You don't see support silencer too often, but he's a very, very enjoyable hero to have on your team, definitely. So that's pretty much all of his skills talked through. Let's talk a little bit about his ultimate. Infest is a really, really unusual ultimate because it allows you to actually go inside another unit, which very, very few things can do. And if you guys have played any Dota, you would have been able to see possibly a few of these combinations. They're called like Lifestealer bombs or Nake's bombs. So if you think of a hero, for example, Storm Spirit, you can infest inside a friendly Storm Spirit, and then he can ball lightning into action, and you burst out. And it's a great initiation. You can use this for initiation, but you can also just use it as a basic team fight nuke, because Infest does a huge amount of damage at level 3. It's a 700 AoE nuke, basically. And it does 400 damage at level 3. So you go 150, 275, 400 at the level 3 ultimate. Absolutely huge amount of damage. And again, pop back into the jungle. The lane's not in an ideal position. There's a Bristleback there. Just going to farm the camp, and then I'm going to return to lane. Do a little bit of harass on this Bristleback. I was thinking of going on him, but there's not really any point. I probably can't kill him. He is incredibly tanky, but he certainly can't kill me, and I just tank the creeps out of tower range. Just harass them down. And do I get that one? I do. And the lane's in a really, really safe position. You see Bristleback just teleports away, because he knows he cannot live with me in lane. And if he stays too long with my lifesteal, I could probably wear him down and go for a kill in a little while. So he's just completely backed off, and now I've got free farm. We've had an absolutely unbelievable start to the game. Let's have a look at the net worth here. Just should just scale this up. There we go. I'm already top of the net worth. Their Faceless Void's actually had a pretty decent start as well. What items did he go? Did he go Midas? Yeah, he went Midas too. So that's probably why he's got such a good start in the net worth. But he can't really compete with my net worth now. I've had a couple of kills, I've got free farm, and I have the Midas. And you see the Global Silence absolutely wreck that team fight bottom. That is how good Global Silence was. It basically got us 2 free kills at the start of the team fight for nothing. And yeah, our CM dies, but that's a 4-for-1 trade. And bearing in mind, I am not even there. And this is the huge thing about having a carry like Lifestealer. You want to create as much space as possible. If you look at their team, you've got a Shadow Shaman, you've got a Nature's Prophet. This is a team heavily reliant on push strats. The reason why you pick a Shadow Shaman, and I don't know why they tried to push that below level 6, is that you get a Serpent Ward, you throw it down, you use it to take a tower, or you use it in an early team fight to create pressure. But when you have a look at our team, we've got Invisible Initiation with Moonlight Shadow. We've got a Global Silence. We've got Bounty Hunter again, Invisible Initiation. And then we've got all the control and the magic nukes that CM offers us. And that looks like one dead Bounty Hunter there. In fact, oh, no. Faceless Void doesn't even have enough damage to get that kill. But you can see, just look at the huge amount of space created. Now Nature's Prophet decides to feed me a few Treants, which is always nice. And I am already pulling away on the net worth. I wasn't even in that team fight, so I didn't benefit from the track gold. This is why Bounty Hunter's a little bit ahead of me. But this is a huge start for a Lifestealer, and this is a scary, scary start. And this is one thing you've really got to understand. And I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here when I should have been talking about Infest. But this is something you have to understand when you're up against a carry like Lifestealer. The enemy team really at this point should make ganking me their #1 priority. Because I have had a frightening start. I have got uncontested free farm. I have a Midas, which I'm just about to go and use now in the jungle. This should be warning bells going off in their heads. Huge warning bells. You cannot allow a carry this much space. You have to gank him. You have to kill him and put him behind. And you see, the Serpent Wards come out. They take a tower, but let's think about all they've committed to do that. They committed 3 heroes, they committed a Shadow Charm on ultimate, and they only got 1 tower out of it. And all this time, look at the map. We've got a guy bottom, sucking up the XP. The lane's gone past now, so he's got a little bit of XP. I am top, getting complete uncontested free farm. We've got a guy mid who's, picking up some free farm, and as they escaped, Bounty Hunter swoops in and picks up a kill. So for that tower, they gave up 2 lanes of free golden EXP and a kill. It's really not worth it in the grand scheme of things. And this is where the enemy team began to make a few mistakes. And I see a lot of heroes come top here. And I just shout out in the game chat, perhaps a little bit of support. We can possibly take a team fight. But let's talk a little bit about Infest again. Hopefully I click on my hero. Like I've been saying, it's a massive nuke. And Silencer gets off his silence here. We see Prophet come in, and oh, that Silencer's not looking good. Very, very dead there, and I decide to bail at that point. I probably could have stayed and tried to tough it out, but don't forget my rage was on cooldown. It was uncertain whether that was a good thing to do, and we've got people actually TPing into the middle of the fight there. And they TP'd, I think, right on top of a Chronosphere, which isn't a good thing. Actually, no, Void missed his Chronosphere. That was a little bit strange, but we've actually managed to defend the tower at this point, and we've got Bounty Hunter swooping in behind. This is incredibly man mode here. I'm not sure what he's doing. Is he going to get away? Again, the global silence comes off, which is massive, and Void is overextended here. Trying to get the open wounds off. Here we go, and you can see how the slow works. He gradually gets faster and faster, but fortunately we managed to kill him before he got away. But that was a good example of how the slow gradually wears off, and he says it's worth it. Totally not worth it at all. We defended the tower. We lost a Bounty Hunter, yeah, but their major carry died. I got the kill as well, which was absolutely massive, and now we can quite easily push another tower here, and we're probably going to take this right now, and there's not a lot they can do about it. And look at this tower absolutely melt. Again, I keep getting distracted by Infest because of all the team fights going on. I briefly touched on the ability that you can do with a bit of a Lifestealer bomb, where you can come in and use it as an initiation, but it's also absolutely fantastic to escape or to do a little bit of damage. Because if you infest an enemy creep, when you burst out, I'll show you a little bit of how I use this in a team fight coming up in a bit. There will be good examples of this if you've not seen this hero before. But it allows you to heal, because if you infest an enemy creep or a neutral creep, when you pop out of your infest, you actually gain that creep's current HP and heals. So if you're really, really low on HP, you can pop into a creep, immediately pop out, heal, and then you can just go and punch people in the face again. It's an incredibly useful ability, but it does take a little bit of thought to actually get your head around it. And there's a couple of times where I balls up the usage as well, so that's always useful. I'm not a perfect Dota player by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a good idea to watch these replays and see where you go wrong, see where you go right, and it's useful to provide a little bit of an example there. So that's all of his skills basically ran through. Very, very powerful combination of skills. Let's talk a little bit now about the item builds. Again, I've gone for a Hand of Midas this game, and this is a very, very situational item. It's an incredibly good item in certain situations. It has been increased in price recently. The recipe went up, so it's not as cheap as it once was. Over 2,000 gold now. That's a big, big investment. But the great thing about getting a Hand of Midas on a strength carry is it gives you attack speed. It gives you attack speed. 30 attack speed is huge, and this is one dead Shadow Shaman here. Pop the Rage just for the attack speed. See, this is a little bit of a mistake. I accidentally popped Teleport instead of popping Quelling Blade, because what you can do is you can Quelling Blade through, and you see me there, I changed my items around because I actually had it on the wrong hotkey. You can actually Quelling Blade down Nature's Prophet's trees, and that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to rush in, Quelling Blade the trees, and quickly punch him before he could get away and try and get the kill. But unfortunately, I hit Teleport Scroll instead of Quelling Blade, and one of them got away. But again, we killed Shadow Shaman, we forced Nature's Prophet to run away, and this is probably going to be another kill on Kunkka here. Needs to be a little careful. Get the open wounds down, pop the rage for the attack speed. He's actually relatively tanky, but he's incredibly dead. The track is super nice as well, because the bonus move speed on track really just synergize brilliantly with Lifestealer, because Lifestealer's major problem is gap closing, and this is the same problem with every single melee hero in the game. Lifestealer has the potential to do a huge amount of damage output, but the problem is closing the gap. There's a hero there, unless they're incredibly dumb, they aren't going to walk up to you and give you a handshake or a hug. You're going to have to close the gap in some way. Now, open wounds is useful. Obviously, the 500 cast range at max level is exceptional, and this is why you want to get this maxed as soon as you can. Very, very useful indeed, because you can open wounds to slow them, and then this is why I like to go phase boots on Lifestealer. You do see some people go treads. I mean, treads are a nice build. The attack speed is very, very useful on Lifestealer again, because the more you attack, the more you proc feast, so the longer you live. But the movement speed is absolutely incredible. The 16% bonus movement speed enables you to close that gap incredibly quickly. You can pop rage as well, so they can't stun you on the way in, and you've got a guaranteed way to get into melee combat there. Absolutely 100% guaranteed. Open wounds, rage, phase boots is a fantastic combo. You can close that gap and really do a huge amount of damage. So again, phase boots over treads. I get the attack speed I would have got with the treads through the Midas. Very, very useful to have that 30 attack speed. And then once you've gone that, Armlet is the first choice. Armlet of Mordegon, very, very useful on strength heroes. You see this a lot on heroes like Wraith King, for example. Strength heroes with a relatively low attack speed you want to boost up and you want to give some extra damage. The great thing about this, gives you HP regeneration, so it increases your survivability. When you activate it, it gives you, as you can see at the top of the screen there, top of the little box, 31 damage, 10 attack speed, and 25 strength, which again gives you more damage and more health. Don't forget that. Strength heroes, every single point that they get increases damage by 1, so it actually gives you an additional 25 damage on top of the 30 damage. And I just punched these serpent wards down, and we actually managed to get the tower deny, which is really, really nice there. So again, what have they committed to that mid lane? They committed to Nature's Prophet, they committed to Kunkka, they committed to Shadow Shaman, they committed to Shadow Shaman's ultimate, they got a tower deny, and they lost a hero. Absolutely huge trade in our favour, and this is the snowball starting again. Look at the net worth. I'm keeping the net worth up so you can see me gradually pull away, but absolutely massive. And going back to the Armlet, Armlet is huge because it gives you damage, attack speed, armour, very, very useful again, begin to tank up, because don't forget, you've already got the inherent magic immunity of Rage. You don't need to buy additional magic immunity. What you need to do is you need to tank up. You need to get armour, you need to get attack speed, you need to get damage on Lifestealer. And we've already got a god like Mirana going absolutely ham. She got really, really fed. I guess we've got a 10, 3, and 6. Hang on, let's just have a look at this fight here. Get rid of that. Here I come. Here comes the cleanup squad. Boom. 4 kills. The only person we lost was a support silencer again. Not a big deal. And this is just an even better start now. But you can see, looking at the scoreboard, we've got a 10, 0, and 7 Mirana now. We've got a 10, 3, and 6 Bounty Hunter. And we've got me. I'm 3, 0, and 4. And I've been in one team fight, basically, which was that one right there. And I arrived late. And this is because I have been farming, and farming. And CM steals 2 of my last hits there. How dare you, CM? What are you doing with your life? Stealing last hits from the carry, not recommended. But, again, this is how you want to play a carry of Lifestealer. You want to get a good early start, get a bit of farm. If you don't have the best lane, leave the Midas. The Midas is an item that you want to get if you've had a great start, because it really does capitalise on your advantage. If I was under pressure, I would have gone straight phase armor. Would have just left the Midas out, because that would have enabled me, to contribute in team fights much earlier. It's all about reading your situation. Because I'd had such a good start in lane, because I've been given unobstructed free farm, I went for the Midas, because that meant that I could capitalise on my advantage absolutely hugely. Then I could pick up the armlet pretty quickly, and after the armlet, go into the Skull Basher. Skull Basher again, very, very useful because like I mentioned earlier, the problem with pretty much every single melee carry is staying in attack range. Firstly, closing the attack range and then staying in a position where you can do damage. And Basher certainly helps you do that because again, open wounds, phase boots, rage combo to close the distance, and then Basher gives a chance to stun for 1.4 seconds. So if you come in, 25% chance, don't forget the increased attack speed on Rage, the increased attack speed on Hand of Midas, the increased attack speed on Armlet of Mordigan. All of these attack speeds stack up, so it increases the chance of you gonna bash. So you can close the gap, open wounds, get the lifesteal, you stun him, and all of a sudden they're in huge trouble. And then the damage output really comes in. And at this point, we can just pretty much take a team fight at will, and you actually pick off the Shadow Shaman before the fight even starts. Again, I dodged the boat. I'm just waiting for a good time to go in here. That's what I was looking to avoid. The Chronosphere. Void Chronospheres for support, and I'm just waiting for the correct time here to run in. Accidentally click on the minimap there. But here we go. Hoover up the Prophet, and this is me just going ham. Unfortunately, they're chasing. Get the open wounds in. Pop the armlet. See, I popped the bash, and that's a dead conker. Very, very easy. And now we're on the pursuit. All we've lost in this fight so far, it is a 2 for 2, but again, Infest to get the heals. Unfortunately, he duped and ran away, but this is one dead hero here. Again, another kill, and Bristleback gets away because the arrow went the wrong way. And Conker calls a GG at this point, which is a little bit too much. They're a long, long way behind, but if you watch my Faceless Void video, you're never out of a game with Faceless Void because he has the ability to completely change a team fight with a good ultimate, so you never know. But you begin to see how the combo works there. You saw me using Infest in a team fight. I was hoping Faceless Void would go on the silencer there, so I would hit him with a damage, but it wasn't a big deal. I still came out, got a little bit of lifesteal, and chased him down, and we got the kill very, very easily because that open wounds combo, the phase boots combo, all of these move speed items is absolutely massive. And like I mentioned earlier, having the bonus movement speed on track and Nature's Prophet kills the courier, absolutely cheeky here. But he's going to pay for his life. Really not worth it at all to do that. But again, the bonus movement speed, 150... No, sorry, that's bonus gold. I was going to say, that is a lot of movement speed. 20% bonus move speed on a track target. So this is a really good synergy draft. This was a really nice draft in this situation by our captain here. The bonus movement speed is massive because it means they can't get away from me. And this is the way you can really deal with Lifestealer, is kiting. You have to kite him. There are very, very few carries in the game who can go toe-to-toe with Lifestealer. And this is why he is such a massive pick. He's so, so good because... there was a large part of the meta for a time was Alchemist carry. You see a lot of people go carry Alchemist because Alchemist had an ultimate which at that time gave him additional health and regen. It just gives him regen now, but it gave him additional health and regen. It gave him a huge amount of attack speed, and then they go things like Abyssal Blade on him. So you get that stun, you get a basher, and then you go toe-to-toe. Very few heroes, possibly no heroes, can go toe-to-toe with a farmed Lifestealer. And this is because he has Rage, he has the magic immunity, so you can't stun him out of anything if you pop it at the right time. He has open wounds, which grants him a huge amounts of lifesteal. Absolutely huge amounts of lifesteal. It's incredible. Stacks with Feast. He has Infest, and the great thing about an Infest as well, when you infest a target, you actually count as being banished. And banishment is a spell, for example, like Outwall Devourer's Astral Imprisonment or Shadow Demon's Disruption. When they take you out of the game, you aren't stunned, you're not slowed, but you're just sort of not there. You're in your own little bubble. And again, just dive the tower here. He's just so dead. Really dead. Pop Rage again. Just hoping for the bash, And this is a big dive. This is a really big dive. See there, I infest for the damage. I actually infested for the damage nicely there. And get the procs on Bristle. And that's a triple kill dive. That was a really good use of infesting a team fight there, because I actually infested to do damage. And again, the armlet attack speed was sweet. We can now drop off, and they've actually got wards there. I did not realise they had wards there. Where am I going? Am I going Secret Shop? Yeah, I'm going Secret Shop to complete my Abyssal Blade. But you see just how powerful Lifestealer is. No one can go toe-to-toe with him, really. You have to kite him, you've got to burst him down when Rage goes off cooldown, you've got to get the initiation on him, because if you let him do the combo that I've been talking about on you, you're in a huge amount of trouble. And let's talk about a little bit the item build progression, because pretty much armlet phase, and this is me getting picked off, and I was very sad panda about that. Really sad panda. That was my first death of the game. Very, very unhappy there. I was like, oh, it's caught out. But again, you see Faceless Void. You saw that Conquer Call GG earlier. Faceless Void there. He has a Midas. He's just picked me off. And actually, how much gold did he get for that? He got 1,246 gold for that. Unfortunately, they overstay their welcome a little bit here, and this Void has to run. Again, good thing about stuff like Time Walk, not broken by Frostbite. Frostbite doesn't break it. Mirana's Leap, another good example, and he's going to get away unless the RNG. Yeah, Crystal Maiden gets away there very, very nicely. But, little bit side point. I talked about Crystal Maiden a few videos ago. Things like Time Walk, Leap, they don't get held in place by Frostbite, so you can move away from that. Very, very important to note. So it's not a hard disable, but it is a little bit of lockdown. But again, like I've been saying, Conquer called GG quite a long time ago, and they are really up against it, but they've got a split push hero in Nature's Prophet, who is always incredibly annoying. And look, they have taken all of our outer towers. So if we get out of position, there's, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Nature's Prophet can split push his way to a tier 3, and then possibly a Rax, and all of a sudden you're a lane of Rax down, then you've got to force the issue, because being a lane of Rax down means less gold and less experience for you, so they begin to catch up. And this wasn't a GG game at all 10 minutes ago. Possibly is a little bit more now, and I accidentally typed 11. I was trying to type something to my team there, realised that I'd accidentally hit it into all chat instead of team chat, so I was trying to hit delete, and then I leant on 11 and hit enter to close it, which was a little bit silly. Just typed 11 there. That is a huge amount, and Mirana actually tried to ult Bounty Hunter out of that, but the little bit of mechanics information there. This is related to the banished thing again, like I was talking about with Infest. Faceless Void's ultimate technically means you're banished, so it actually removes a lot of spell buffs from you, and this is the great thing about Infest, because if you get poisoned, you can actually infest a creep and the poison will no longer damage you. This is the great thing. So even though Mirana had, and I'm actually following Crystal Maiden there, instead of me, but again, you just see, use the Abyssal Blade on Bristleback, slow him down, he's dead. He's dead. There's no doubt about that. But again, talking about banishment, if Faceless Void ults you, all of those positive buffs are removed. So even though Mirana had popped her Moonlight Shadow, Faceless Void could still see Bounty Hunter because his ultimate counts as a banishment for the hero, so it removes that buff. This is exactly the same with Lifestealer's Infest. If you infest a creep or a hero, you don't suffer poison damage. One strange little thing about it, you don't actually gain assist gold, which is very, very interesting. You actually don't gain assist gold when you are fighting, and for example you infest a guy and a guy dies next to you. If you're inside a hero, you don't gain any gold for that. It's a little bit interesting. And one good point here, as you can see, Feast does not work against Roshan. Open Wounds, however, does. Unfortunately, I tried to cast it on him when he had his Lincoln shield up, because he does have technically a Lincoln sphere, not a shield. And I pick up the Aegis, and now we should really push. But there's a reason why we aren't pushing here. We're having a little bit of fun. Mirana decided to build a lot of Maelstroms this game, so we're giving her the option just to farm up a few Maelstroms while I just sit and knock around. But item progression. So I basically went Phase, Armlet, Basher, and then after Basher I went Assault Cuirass. And I've talked about this already. The themes you're looking for on Lifestealer. You're looking to tank up in terms of armor, and I walk into the Chronosphere like a complete moron, which is not fantastic. Again, the banishment thing, you cannot walk through that with a Rage on as much as you'd like to, and I'm trying to catch the Conquer, use the Abyssal Blade on him to guarantee the kill. Very, very easy kill. But again, Assault Cuirass is a massively good item on Lifestealer because it gives you armor, it gives you aura attack speed, it gives minus armor aura to every enemy hero or creep around you, or building as well. AC actually works on buildings too. So you are doing more damage, you are punching quicker, you are taking less damage, and you are giving all of your teammates more damage. Huge item. It's an absolutely fantastic item on Lifestealer. you know, I wouldn't say it's a core item. There are some times when you wouldn't get AC, but it's very, very rare. You know, most of the time, Assault Cuirass is your go-to item. You know, your major tier 3 item, you want to get an AC. After that, I went Abyssal Blade. Abyssal Blade, again, natural progression. You've already got the Skull Basher, you might as well build an Abyssal Blade. It just sort of makes sense. And I'm going to back up here. I can't really be killed, but I'm just playing super safe. There's no point, you know, trying to dive ridiculously. Let's just go up, farm their jungle. It was a Shadow Shaman, really. If I'd have paid attention, I should have just stayed there and punched him and he would have died. But never mind. You know, probably could have killed him. I did have Aegis as well, but I was just waiting for the Bounty Hunter, but Bounty can just absolutely whack him. This is the thing. Sometimes I don't realise quite how far I am ahead. Because I am so far ahead at this point. I'm 10k net worth ahead. 10,000 net worth ahead of their next best hero. And I've got the Aegis of the Immortal. You know, this is an opportunity for me to punch people in the face very hard. And I just pop Rage immediately. They get the Global Silence. Punch. Punch. There we go. 1 kill. Punch. Punch. I'm so slow. Nasal Goo. So I just decided to punch Bristleback anyway. And I didn't actually realise my Abyssal Blade was off cooldown, which is my bad. I should have really got 2 kills there. But what are you going to do? Never mind. And I've dived really far. And this is a fail of the week video right here. I think this is the right time anyway. See, I infest actually to dodge the trees, which is really nice from Nature's Prophet. I dive on Nature's Prophet again. Just look at me kill these guys. Oh, no, he's going to get away. No, he dies. Okay, yeah, I think this is when I die. This is really, really silly. I get healed up. No, okay, this isn't the fail. Okay, there is a really hilarious fail coming up soon where I die very, very stupidly. But yeah, like Conker said, I'm at the point now where you can't touch me. You know, I am unkillable at this point because the Abyssal Blade, it gives me a 2-second stun through Magic Immunity. So even if they get BKBs, I can still hold them in place now. I've got massive armor, so they can't right-click me down very easily. I take armor off them. Just that Prophet was brainless there. That was just such a brainless death. It was just, he walked up to Morana. It's like, please hit me with an arrow in the face. It was just so silly. It was really, really silly. I'm actually checking the scoreboard out now, thinking, oh balls, I am actually quite a long way ahead. And you just look at the kills, 56 to 16. It's massive, absolutely massive lead. You know, 11,000 net worth now, absolutely huge again. And I'm transitioning now into, as you can see at the bottom, a Heart of Tarrasque. And a Heart of Tarrasque at this point, it's just extra survivability. You know, I could have gone something like a Daedalus or an MKB. Probably an MKB would have been better than a Daedalus, to be honest, just in case Void got up his butterfly. But he went Daedalus first. He went Battle Fury into Daedalus, so he's about 25 minutes off his butterfly. It's really not going to happen. You know, if, pardon me, a little bit of a burp there. If I'd have seen Void go butterfly first, I would have bought an MKB at this point. You know, just to completely get rid of any RNG that could have made we lost this game. Because at this point, we still haven't taken Rex. We could have GG'd this game at this point, but again, we were just messing around having a bit of fun while Morana masses up a Maelstroms, which is pretty hilarious. Just look how often the lightning procs there. That's pretty ridiculous. But, like I mentioned, I'm at the stage now where I can be a little bit picky with my items. I can just go, yeah, I sort of fancy a heart. And the heart just felt like the right thing to go. Like I mentioned, you know, Void is nowhere near his butterfly. The only way I'm going to die is if they focus everything on me when my rage is down. So the best way to survive that is more HP. Like, there's no point building a BKB. I've got a free BKB right here in rage. Absolutely pointless building a BKB on Lifestealer. So I might as well go heart. It's extra survivability, the nice amount of strength as well. Very, very useful. And I think the courier died again. Courier died with my item on it, which really, really sucked. It really sucked. That Prophet killed the courier twice this game, doing his little fountain teleportation trick, which is incredibly annoying. You gotta say fair play. It's a nice little gimmick, I suppose. It did get him killed once, which is a big, big problem. You know, he should really have been split pushing, but instead he was trying something cute. And here we go. I infest in the Morana, hoping she gets a arrow leap combo off. And this is a good example of a Nake's bomb. Because we see, oh, they see the squishy Morana. I don't pop out expecting that to happen. I wait, and oh, I'm scary. I'm very scary. And that Faceless Void had a bad day. And we just wiped the team in that fight. And I get all of this lovely ward gold as well. which is absolutely nice. And that's the thing, Lifestealer is such a versatile hero. In a 1v1 fight, and you see I type surprise and spell it incorrectly, but never mind. In a 1v1 fight, very few heroes can live with him. He, with the right item build, is actually surprisingly mobile. So he can get around very, very nicely with his slow and with phase boots and with his magic immunity. So he can gank reasonably well for a carry. Because you see a lot of carries, they require setup. Again, the ones that always spring to mind is a carry like Anti-Mage. Anti-Mage has a ferocious damage output. When you see like Battle Fury, Manta Style, another item on top of that on an Anti-Mage, they are frightening. But what can he do to stop people from running away? He can chase them a long way with his blink, but he cannot actually lock them in place. And this is something Lifestealer does incredibly well. He can run up to a guy, he can guarantee an initiation with his skills, he can slow them, he can just punch them in the face, he can get an Abyssal Blade so they definitely can't run away, and then he just a huge amount of damage. I haven't really bought any damage item here. I've got an Abyssal Blade, which is an extension of a lockdown item basically, and I popped Rage just to be safe there. I just didn't want to take the boat. And you see the attack speed bonus there. Huge amount. I'm already attacking with a nice amount of attack speed. That was a nice Chronosphere from Void, but there's only so much he can do. You know, he kills only one hero. They're trying to burn absolutely everything on me here. Absolutely everything. But then I just turn around and problems happen. See, I don't even have my heart at this point. My heart is on the dead courier. And look, this is that. There's the fail. Oh, I was so sad about that. I was really sad about that. I didn't actually realise that the tower had still aggroed me, so I turned off my armlet, it took my health down to like 3, and then the tower killed me, which is absolutely painful. And I buy back, I sell my phase boots here, sell my Midas, and I actually buy boots of travel, just because I wanted to be in the combat at the end screen. And I finally pick up my heart, because the courier respawned, which is always nice. Teleport back into the action. And at this point, well, this game's been GG for a huge amount of time. I just punched the buildings down to speed it up. But I think it's a pretty good example of how to play Lifestealer. You know, I had a really, really good lane. Great support from the CM and the Silencer. Got me a few early kills. I used that gold to a Midas, which put me even further ahead. I jungled a little bit, got a bit of free farm. I joined a few smart fights. You know, I got a kill top with a Shadow Shaman when Conquer and Nature's Prophet pushed mid tower, the tier 2. I came in, got a kill, got a few extra assists. Just started to snowball again, and then we joined a massive team fight bottom where I got even more gold. And at that point, it was just over. And I'm basically one-hitting heroes at this point. Just dead. That Shadow Shaman cannot live with me. There's no hope. At this point, there's no hope. And I go back and finish the racks off. You know, Lifestealer, you can see from this game just how incredibly powerful Lifestealer is. You know, he really is a frighteningly good carry. Now, that's why you see him get picked and banned so much by pro teams. He's absolutely monumentally strong. Counters to Lifestealer. Counters to Lifestealer are a little bit tricky. I think you just need a lot of DPS. You need a agility carry, someone like a Luna. But again, if Lifestealer closes the gap on the Luna, Luna's boned. She's in a huge amount of trouble. You know, that inherent magic immunity is just incredible. Heroes to avoid when you're playing against the Lifestealer. Alchemist. You know, you see quite a few, I suppose not as much anymore, but people like a carry Alchemist, you'd see that a few amount of times. You know, Lifestealer is just such a hard counter to Alchemist for all the reasons why I've mentioned. All of the lifesteal, all of that single target damage, just look at the damage. The fact I can lock him in place and stun him. You know, the fact that my lifesteal scales as well. It scales with his current HP. So as Alchemist gets more tanky, when his ultimate gives him all of that HP, it gives me more lifesteal. You know, just even look at the bristleback here. I am hitting him through his back. He's taking so little damage, but he still can't live with me. You know, he just still cannot live with me here, and it's just huge. You know, I've gotten pretty fat at this point. I am an incredibly fat Lifestealer, and that's the end of the game. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I really hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you guys try Lifestealer, because he's such an amazing hero. And just look at this scorecard. You know, this was absolute domination at the end. If I just close that, there we go, so you can see the final score. You know, they had 2 Midases and they still couldn't keep up with our farm because we just completely smashed Shadow Shaman and Prophet. And I felt so sorry for the Shadow Shaman because it just got to a point where he couldn't stay anywhere near either me or Morana. If me or Morana saw him, or even Bounty Hunter, he was dead, and that was it. But once again, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Really hope you've enjoyed it, and as always, have a great day.